Hey guys, Howard here with the major and minor pentatonic scales. What's the difference and how best to use them when and where? This is a question that many of my students have asked me over the years, and so I'd like to address it in this tutorial. So let's dive right in. First of all, let's start with a basic blues. So let's say we have a 1-4-5 blues progression, A7 for example, and then maybe to D7 and E7. Or if you like for more color, we can have the A7, a D9, and an E9, okay? And so that would just give us a basic blues progression. And so forth and so on, and of course we'd have the 5 chord. Average blues progression in A. Now what's important to understand about these chords is that they are all major chords. Yes, they're dominant sevenths, but dominant sevenths are major chords, okay? So there's no minor chords being used here. Now, the scale that most players will go to improvise, ad-lib, and create solos over these 3 chords is the A minor pentatonic scale. So in that respect, you can look at a major blues as a minor scale being superimposed over major chords. But that's one of the things that gives the blues its unique characteristic. Right, it's that clash of the major and the minor against each other. So that would be the go-to scale, the predominant scale that you would use most of the time to solo over those 3 chords. And it's incredibly effective, okay? So let me give you an example of that. So as you can see, it sounds pretty great, right? It's a very simple scale. It's incredibly effective against the chords, and it works well with all 3 of them, no matter what chord is going by underneath you. Now, if you want to give this scale some spice, you can add the flat 5 to it or the blue note, and we will add it in 2 different spots. Right there at the 6th fret on the A string, then continue through the scale as you normally would. And then we add it again to the 8th fret on the G string, and then finish the rest of the scale as usual. And that will give it some edge, okay? Now you don't want to rest on that note. You want to use it as a passing tone. Okay, so let's do a brief example of that over the same track, just adding that flat 5 to it for a bit of color. So as you can hear, it just gives it a little bit of an edge. It gives it that really cool sound, okay? Now, what you also want to do is spread this scale out across the fretboard. I won't go into great depth in this particular lesson. If you want to check out my blues rock guitar course, you can link to it in the description box below, and it takes a much deeper dive into things. But for right now, we just want to cover the difference between the major and the minor pentatonic, when and how to best use them. But I do want to give you this. This is the A minor / blues scale, spread out in a linear form across the fretboard, okay? You can see the tab on the screen, but this is how it's played. That second note is the root note of the scale. And so that will give you a little bit more playground, if you will, to work with. Now, one of the things I've always told my students over the years is this simple thing to remember. The blues is the blues is the blues, okay? And what I mean by that is, for instance, in this first example, we are using all major chords, but we're using an A minor pentatonic / blues scale against those chords. So what happens if we have a blues progression, a 1-4-5 blues progression in the key of A minor? So we might have all minor chords. Okay. Or we might have a minor chord, and then a major at the end, something like that. But it is a minor blues. It is predominantly minor. Well, whatever the minor blues is, if it's an A minor blues, if it's in G minor, if it's in B minor, that tells you what scale to use. So yes, if we're playing a minor blues in the key of A, then we're still going to use that A minor pentatonic scale / blues scale, okay? So that's what I mean by the blues is the blues is the blues. It doesn't matter whether we're using all major chords or minor chords. That's still going to be the scale of choice, okay? The number one scale of choice. Now, of course, there are other things you can do in both major and minor blues, but again, I cover that in depth in my blues rock guitar course. This is just a simple explanation of these two very powerful scales. Now, what happens is that the scale itself takes on the color of whatever the chords are underneath. So let me use a minor blues this time, a minor blues backing track, and you can hear exactly what I mean. It creates a whole different color and characteristic in the scale. So as you can hear, that sounds pretty good as well, right? I mean, the scale just sounds great, whether it's a major blues or a minor blues, and that, in a nutshell, is what I mean by the blues is the blues is the blues. But what happens if you're playing a chord progression or a song that is not a standard blues progression? It might be a pop song, a melodic song, a Beatles song, and any kind of song, right? But it's not just a simple 1-4-5 blues. Okay? So, if a song is not a blues, but it's in a minor key, then that's the scale that you use. And what I mean by that is if the song is in A minor, then you're going to use an A minor pentatonic scale. If the song's in G minor, you'll use a G minor pentatonic scale, and so on. If it's in B minor, you'll use a B minor pentatonic scale. So let's say you've got a song that's got an A minor, a G, an F, maybe an E minor, a few chords from the key of A minor. That A minor pentatonic scale is still going to sound the best. Okay, so reiterating, if a song is in a minor key, that tells you what scale to use, okay? So here comes the major pentatonic scale. What's the diff and how to use it, right? Well, obviously the main difference is one is major and one is minor. So they're going to have characteristically different sounds and colors. So let's say you have a song or a chord progression that's in a major key, and once again, it's not a blues. So if we take the key of A major, we might have an A major chord, maybe an E major, an F sharp minor, and a D, right? So this is a different musical terrain altogether. So obviously the scale of choice would be the A major pentatonic. Okay, but here's the trick. This is the way most rock and blues and pop players look at it, okay? They like that A minor pentatonic scale because they can do all their usual licks. They can do all their bends, their slides, their hammer-ons, all that stuff. They don't want to lose that just because it's switched to a major key. So this is how you do it. Starting from the root note, which is A, you move a step and a half to the left. And what I mean by that is you looking down at your guitar neck. You're going to move a step and a half to the left. So from that root note, you're going to go 1, 2, 3. Now, that theoretically takes you to the relative minor of the key of A major. Okay, I don't want to get too theoretical, but that's the relative minor of A major. Technically, it's an A major scale, but I'll explain that in a moment. So what we do is we just take that same fingering that we've been working with, and we take it to the 2nd fret. And that's going to be your scale of choice to solo over an A major progression or any major progression. If the song is in B major, you do the same thing, 1, 2, 3. And that gives you your relative minor, or what is technically your A major scale. So let me explain that real quick before I do a musical example. So we're thinking of it in the same way, the shape and the form, right? And that allows us to do all our usual stuff. A huge advantage, right? Now, technically, theoretically, music theory here, the 2nd note of that fingering is an A note. And if you follow through, that is literally an A major pentatonic scale. But again, we're thinking about it in the relative minor. Same finger, same everything, but it gives us that bluesy quality, okay? So let me give you an example over that very progression. Therein lies the magic of using the major pentatonic scale, okay? And what you want to do with that scale is you want to spread it out in a linear way as well, okay? And I'll show you how to do that. So you can see it's very similar in shape, right? And once you're armed with that, I mean, we're just scratching the surface here. There's so much more that you can do. And I would urge you to maybe check out my blues rock guitar course, but right here on YouTube for free, check out cool pentatonic tricks that every guitar player should know, and also double stops explained. That will give you even more stuff to work with. But for now, let me play over that progression again using the box position of that scale as well as the linear one, okay? Here we go. So there you have it, the basics of the major and minor pentatonic scales, what the differences between them, and how best to use them. Now, other things, as I keep saying, can be incorporated into this, and you can even use the major pentatonic in a major blues if you know exactly what to do and when and how to do it. But again, I cover all of that in my blues rock guitar course. So anyway, I hope that clarified a common question that I get from a lot of my students over the years. And once again, the blues is the blues is the blues, okay? And then the major difference comes with a major pentatonic chord progression or a minor chord progression, all right? A full-blown minor progression that's not a blues. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, and all the best to everyone.